Well, I had 5 in last week, and then I had 3 this week. So splitting the baby. We're putting it at 4.
Is that an expression, or are you just making stuff up right now?
Welcome, everybody, to the R&R Catcast, a fan-based podcast focusing on Montana State athletics. We're 2 dudes named Ryan from the state of Washington talking about our dear Montana State. We hope you enjoy. Welcome back, Bobcat fans. The Bobcats come out of Macomb with the win, and now we prepare for our last non-conference game. How you doing tonight, Thorny?
I'm doing darn good because we won a game, and it's always good to do this podcast after a victory. How are you doing?
I'm feeling better today than I was Sunday.
Yeah, you were kind of down a little bit after that victory.
Yeah, I think I gained some perspective, and we'll talk about that tonight. So
for sure.
All right. A little show outline for us. First, we're going to look at some news. We're going into the game recap from last Saturday against Western Illinois. We'll do a little game preview for Norfolk coming up. And we'll do our closing segments with some buy or sell. We'll recap our bold predictions. And sprinkled throughout, we're going to go into our Golden Koozie questions. So be prepared for those.
Yeah, we got some good responses on those. Want to thank everyone for submitting the questions here. We'll kind of ask a few that are relevant to the content we'll be talking about anyway, and then we'll finish the rest off at the end. And I did try and book a Norfolk beat reporter, podcaster, anybody in the world who could possibly do it. The main guy that I would expect to do it, never responded to me. And then the other guy just had a scheduling conflict. So we don't have anyone to talk about it, but that's probably for the best. I don't mind.
Those segments have been really interesting, and they have been really fun to do. And when you listen back into the podcasts, they come across really good. So it was disappointing to me just a little bit that we didn't have anybody to talk to this week.
It's true. They do provide some good insight, and they make our job a little bit easier because they do want to do a little bit research on the team because they know everything that there is to know about the team already.
That's very true. That's very true. All right, Thorny. Hey, you got a cold one back there?
I sure do, and it's nothing fancy. I have Coors Light.
Is that your go-to light beer there?
I don't know. I don't have a go-to light beer. I just whatever. Oh, I haven't had this one in a while when I get to the store. Basically rotating between Coors Light or Miller Lite or Michelob Ultra, whatever. They're all the same, really.
Oh man, when I think of Michelob Ultra, I think of guys rollerblading, and so when you just said that, I pictured you rollerblading. It was just made me laugh.
Why on earth would Michelob Ultra make you think of rollerblading?
Oh, just they're ads on TV, man. All the guys doing all the active stuff, and then everybody goes out to the bar and sings a song and raises a cold Michelob Ultra, So.
No, I am definitely I was thinking there's the active commercials where everyone's working out and then they meet at the bar and they drink the low carb beer so they don't get fat. But pretty sure I wouldn't connect the dots to rollerblading. But hey, it's all up for interpretation, right?
Yeah, maybe it's just me. I might be a loner on that one. So
I do have a pair of rollerblades about 10 feet from me. So
when's the last time you rollerbladed?
My wife and I, when we first bought our house, we went rollerblading around the neighborhood for a couple weeks. So about 7 years ago, actually.
That's sooner than I've.
Yeah.
Okay. So tonight I am drinking what's called the Sky Kraken from Fremont. It's a hazy pale ale, and it's kind of a cool can. It's this blue can, and it's got this big kraken taking down a zeppelin. It's really kind of wild. So Fremont over in Seattle, I've had a couple of their beers on the show before. It was sitting in my fridge. My wife picked up this 6-year. It's pretty good.
But does the kraken turn blue, or the ocean that he's in turn blue when it's cold enough?
No, it's the Sky Kraken, so it's in the sky.
Oh, Sky Kraken. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
I
No,
get my Krakens confused. The land Kraken, Sky Kraken, and the Sea Kraken.
The Kraken is orange color and it's taking down the Zeppelin. So it's a really weird, like when you're like contemplating it, you're like, okay, well, I don't know what's really going on, but you don't think too much about it when you're drinking the beer. So
True.
I'm just gonna slide it into my Golden Koozie and off we go.
There you go. That will enhance any beer.
All right, so first things first, let's get some news out of the way. First thing that came out today was the movement on our FCS poll. The Cats went from number 10 to number 8.
Do you think that we are legitimately currently a top 10 team?
So I thought about this, and historically, my short answer is I'm really undecided. But I'm going to choose yes on this. And here's why. If I go with historics on this, or history, I should say that. If I go with history on this, if you look at past top 10 teams, there is a lot of sprinkled marginal victories that you should have, like if you're looking at paper, you're like, oh, they should dominate that. But, they squeak by and whatnot. And that we're going to talk about that's what happened to Montana State this past weekend. And, they get the benefit of the doubt. If they win, they either stay, static or move up. And so, if we were at 10 last week, which I thought was about right, somewhere in there, and we win on the road in a tough place such as Macomb, yeah, I think climbing 2 or climbing 1 would have been about where I would have thought we would have ended up. So are we a top 10 team? I guess we are.
I don't feel like we're there yet. I mean, obviously we are, and I agree with the logic that, hey, we were ranked number 10, we had to win, so yes, we move up, especially with some teams in front of us losing. So, I mean, it makes sense that we moved up. It just doesn't feel like we're quite a top 10 team yet because we don't have a quarterback situation that is playoff caliber, in my opinion, just yet. But we'll get into that here in a little bit. I am curious, though. So you think that we're about a top 10 team. I'll preface this by saying that we vote in the Big Sky Podcast Network Power Rankings. I don't know if any of you follow that on Twitter. There's a group of all the podcasters from the Big Sky who create this network. And one of the content things that we create is a power ranking, which is different than a poll, a little bit more like a week. You and I kind of view it as a who would you least like to play right now. So it's not a more predictive poll style, but you weren't so kind to the Bobcats in that poll, were you?
So you can bring that up. No, I had them 6th out of 16 teams as of like this week. And like I said, or I guess I didn't say, I said it to you prior to our recording. I voted on that yesterday, and I'm feeling a little bit more comfortable with the Cats' victory today than I was yesterday. Although I still think I would have been pretty close to that 5 or 6 spot. Where
would you have put the Cats Saturday night?
I would have been consistent, probably 6th. I think, so for a quick recap, I had Weber up top, followed by, I'm going to forget now, but UC Davis, and then Eastern after that. And then I had, the Grizz and then Eastern. And I put Northern Arizona in front of us, mainly because, I just got to watch their game on Saturday night, and they look good. They can move the ball up and down the field really easily. And I was feeling a little bit jealous. And so I think that's why I put NAU in front of us during this week.
It's so funny how things are influenced by what you're able to see. Like, I watched part of the Sac State game against Arizona State, and I thought, man, Sac State looks really good. So I've been kind of high on them in my power rankings, which I submitted last week. UC Davis, number 1, Weber, number 2, and then I had Eastern even after that loss, just because I still think they took a tough environment and they faltered in the fourth quarter, but I still think they're probably the 3rd best team currently. Then I had the Cats, and then I had the Grizz because I went back and forth, like the Grizz, should they be above us after that decent performance against Oregon, which I watched most of. They actually looked pretty good, but in the end, road win against Missouri Valley Football Conference still makes a better team than a decent loss against Oregon. So That's my top 5. Grizz number 5, Cats number 4.
No? Well, we're pretty close. So
Yeah, pretty close.
All right.
All right, so that's how we voted on that. Let's keep moving here. Tristan Bailey, Big Sky Player of the Week for 3 for 3 field goals, including the one that you and I and Shane Driscoll on our text chain. You and I, that last one, like, no, you go for it here. Don't kick the field goal. And Shane's like, nah, you kick it. And they kick it and they made it. So kudos to you, Shane. We were both wrong on that one. No faith in Tristan Bailey apparently on our side, but proved to be a good call. So that was good for Tristan Bailey. Kudos on a great game. And I'm sure Western Illinois will be happy to never have to play against Tristan Bailey again, because he's pretty much like 5 for 5 or 6 for 6 over 2 games, something like that.
I thought he was 7 for 7.
Was he 4 for 4 last year?
Yeah. He's nails against Western Illinois. So
it's pretty funny.
But he's really inconsistent otherwise. So
True, yeah. Yeah, whatever it is, he sees that purple, just kicks right through the uprights. Let's see, what else we got here in the news? Isaiah Nfonse is back on the depth chart, listed as a starter, and Carl Tucker is off the depth chart, assumed to be an injury of some kind. So Shane Perry moves into the 3rd spot there, which is a little interesting as well. Demarius Hosey, not on the depth chart, but I don't think he was last week either, if I remember correctly. But I don't know. We'll see how that shakes out. And is there anything else you want to talk about the depth chart wise? Did I miss something there?
Yeah, I just don't think Nfonse is going to play this week. I think that's some gamemanship right there from Choate. I just think he's just going to rest him until conference play starts.
He did say in the press conference that if that was a conference game last week, Isaiah would have gone. So, again, gamemanship or not, I believe when he says that if the game was more important or came closer, he probably would have started him. But anyway, rambling. Last thing, news-wise, of course, we always talk a little bit about the press conference. What did you think about that? Anything stick out to you there?
I always come away just beaming, smiling. I just love listening to Choate. I think he does a really good job of giving just respect to our upcoming opponents. He really talks up our opponents all the time. And he mentioned this last year. He goes, by Monday, I don't believe we can win. And by middle of the week, I think we have a chance. But I always feel like he does. Like if you listen to him talk about Norfolk, you would think we'd be playing, some power team. And, I'm not trying to discredit Norfolk, but they're not. And but Choate does a really good job of going through all their players and, schemes and whatnot, and gives you a good picture of what to expect. But you got to take that with a grain of salt, knowing his track record there. So,
yep, agreed. The thing I thought was pretty interesting was his commentary on penalties. Did you hear that part?
Yeah, 21 flags.
Well, more specifically, that he what did he say? He said he doesn't mind the aggressive penalties because that's how he wants his guys to play. He doesn't want the dirty or the stupid penalty, but if you're playing a little bit and they go a little bit beyond the whistle and you're being aggressive, he's okay with that penalties. But the other thing he said that was interesting too is if you're dominating a team, he says for some reason that the referees start calling flags in the kicking game. Did you hear that part?
Yeah.
And he said, but he'll take the 10 yards and leave the message. So what does that mean? On a kick return, if one of your guys blocks too hard and you get the penalty, he's okay with that because it sent a message? Is that really how I took that?
I think, yeah. I don't know. I didn't think too much on that, but I would assume that's probably what he's saying. I think he's just I think he just wants to say, if we're coming across as a physical team and that's what you're calling us on, I'll take that all day, every day.
The other interesting part, we'll talk about this next part. And once we start talking about the game recaps, is there anything else you want to talk about from the press conference or anything?
Yeah,
like that?
Just briefly, I thought he did a real good job of painting a picture on the logistical challenges that Macomb brought to the plate. And that kind of helped me reframe my just perspective on the game and the outcome of that. So I was wondering kind of your take on that.
Just on how he paints the difficulty of traveling there?
Yeah, and just he, in quoting, he said, it's not a great atmosphere. He talks about how just like the locker room situation was even worse than like going from the field house to the stadium in Bozeman.
I think it's interesting. It's not necessarily something a coaches comment on all the time. So it kind of gives you a perspective. Like if Coach Choate, sometimes I combine those two words. If Choate goes there and he says stuff like that, like no one was telling me when there was radio timeouts or TV timeouts, or he's like, it was just kind of a mess. And I'm like, pretty eye-opening, really. Like I don't think he'd say that unless he felt pretty strongly about it.
Yeah.
So just interesting comments. I think most coaches would probably bite their tongue in that situation.
Yeah.
It's like there's really no need to say that, but he said it anyway. So who knows why? Just wanted to vent.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. So let's parlay that into our game recap if we're talking Western Illinois. And I want to apologize real quick. Last week on the podcast, I listened back and I called Western Illinois probably 5 or 6 times consistently. And, I'm not claiming to be an English teacher. I'm not, but I should know that.
Yep. Sorry, I should have saved you. That's my fault. I heard you say it and I was like, well, maybe it's a different dialect thing. Like, I don't know. Maybe some people say it in certain parts of the country, but I'm pretty sure it's Illinois, but I'm just going to let go. So I should have saved you. My mistake.
Nope, that was just straight up me being wrong, which I am a lot. So it doesn't surprise me, but that was pretty embarrassing after I listened to it. That was the first time I heard me say it, and I was like, oh my gosh, I hope I don't repeat that. And sure enough, 5, 6 times thereafter, I was like, man.
Well, well, there's plenty of kind of embarrassing things that happened on Saturday against Western Illinois. 2 for 16, third down. That's pretty bad. Let's see, what else was pretty bad? I mean, just the penalties, the sloppiness of it all. But let me get into the stats here real quick. So, Bobcats 18 first downs versus 15. So hey, we beat someone in the first downs. That doesn't always happen for the Bobcats. Total yards pretty dead even. 343 Cats, 337 for the Leathernecks. Passing is 281 for the Leathernecks. That's only 149 for the Cats. So another day when Bauman struggled throwing the ball, and we didn't have any little fly sweep passes to kind of get 60-yard chunks in this one. We did rush the ball okay without Afonso. Logan Jones did a really good job filling in, but we only ended up at 4.5 yards per carry and 194 yards on 43 attempts. So not stellar. And like we'll talk about, one of those was on an 86-yard touchdown run, whatever that ended up being. Great run, but turnovers really were one of the big things too. We had 2 fumble recoveries and an interception that should have been a touchdown. And yeah, we lost the ball once ourselves. But yeah, penalties were one of the biggest killers. 12 penalties for 92 yards, 9 for the Leathernecks for 105. So just a sloppy game. So one word I would use to describe the entire game, both teams just sloppy.
Jeff Choate mentioned about the penalty. He said it cost us 263 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 possession.
Where did he get the math on that? I heard that. I was like, how did he come up with that?
Yeah, he has advanced metrics we're not privy to.
Cole Moore did it, I'm sure.
Yeah. One stat I did kind of come up with myself was I went through the game stats, and I was like, I wondered how many times we were in 3rd and long. And I categorized 3rd and long by 3rd and 8, anything like equal to 8 yards or greater. We were in that position 12 times in that game.
Out of how many third downs? Did you happen to get the total?
No, I didn't. But,
still
and that
a lot, though. Still a lot.
12 3rd and longs is enough for us to kind of pull our hair out, it feels like. And that was that was a sticky point for us last year, right? And it's just like, oh, man, that thing's rearing its head again. So,
yeah. I mean, there's just too many little procedural penalties, like a false start, first 15, kind of dooms an offense like ours.
Let's talk about the offense. Let's go through the offense, the defense, and special teams. Well, let's start off with the offense. What do you think about the offense?
So really, the focal point of the conversation for me has to be Casey Bauman and his inaccuracy throwing the ball. As many of you are in the same boat as me, nobody saw the first half of the game. Thanks ESPN Plus. But for what I did see in the second half, Bauman did not look very good. He didn't look rattled necessarily. I couldn't really tell what the issue was, but I think that stemmed a lot of the issues because Western Illinois is built to stop the run. They clearly only plan on stopping the run against us. They were planning on bombing, making some throws to beat us. Anytime Troy or Johnson came in there, just like load up the box up. They know we're not gonna throw the ball. So we needed Bauman to make some throws, and I think the staff did a pretty decent job of giving him throws, manageable throws to make, and he just was off. And I think that kind of just cascaded, and we saw what a Bobcat offense without a healthy Troy Anderson and no Isaiah Fonse looks like, and it wasn't pretty.
No, it certainly wasn't. And to me, it was Bauman's worst game so far. I mean,
Agreed.
It's a short sample. It's only 3 games. But his errant passes are really bad. And like, I remember one time maybe he's thrown out to Cassius in the flat, and like it wasn't even close. And Cho had mentioned earlier today, he's like, sometimes it's transferring his weight. Sometimes he thinks he's holding on to the ball too strongly, and that does affect how it comes out of your hand.
What exactly does that mean? Like the weight transfer? I don't fully understand what that means.
Okay, so when he comes off his back leg, you load off your back leg, and then you push forward, and you come, and you drive off your you drive off your back, and you land on your front, kind of like a pitcher would, coming off the mound.
Sure.
Yeah. And when you watch him like throw his successful deep balls, he does it really well. When he's doing these like quick plays, he's quick to set his feet, and maybe that's what he's talking about. He's like, the transfer, the follow through might not be there. But again, I think it has something to do with his grip too, because you go try to throw football and grip it hard. It's not going to come off well. Like I was reading an article recently where Drew Brees was talking about how to throw a spiral. And he's like, one of the most key things most people don't know is you have to have a light grip on it. And I think maybe he's just being too juiced up. But put it in perspective though, Thorny, we knew we were going to have some struggles. He's not thrown one interception yet, and he's taking care of the ball. And so I'm willing to live with this right now. And I mean, we have, even with the struggles he has, we're still producing and we're still winning games. And I think that goes to show just how far we've come in the last couple of years.
Agreed. I mean, there are some positives to take away. Like I said, without Troy Anderson, really, without Isaiah Fonse and Bauman playing pretty poorly, let's be completely honest, we still won a road game against a decent Missouri Valley Football Conference team. Like, that's still, like 3 years ago, this wouldn't have happened. Like, Chris Murray would have a bad game and we would just get steamrolled. Like, it's still an improvement. But like you were talking about, I remember that specific throw to Cassis. It was so bad that it actually, like, I remember it kind of, I think it had so much like spiral on it that it kind of started curving a little bit, and it pretty much hit the defender like almost right in the chest. Like I think the defender was breaking on the ball and it caught him off guard, and he couldn't even get his arms up to catch it. But it was such a bad throw. It's like it should have been a pick six. And there's another one on the other side of the field where he just airmailed it out of bounds. Like, and these aren't plays where he's hurried or he's rushed. He's sitting there. He has time in the pocket. He makes the right read, and he just misfires. Like, nobody's catching that thing. So I don't know. I don't know what to think about that yet. But I will say that I was super impressed with Logan Jones filling in for Ifanze. What did you think of Logan Jones' performance?
He brought his A game for sure. It was like the best game.
The bright spot.
Yeah, he was the best game we've had from Logan Jones. Yeah, and it just makes you happy that he managed last year like he did, and so he could come back. But yeah, he was a stud out there.
I think it proves that he could be a full-time guy. I don't think he could do it week after week after week, but if you need him to come in for a game, he's going to be able to do enough to move the chains and put you in a position to win.
Yeah, he spells Defonse really well, and he has the speed, he has the toughness, and I think when you got speed and toughness, that's a pretty good combination.
Man, he like mowed into some defenders and like fell forward over the top of them, like little. I mean, he's 190, 187, so he's not like lightweight necessarily. He's like 5'7". You don't expect a little guy just to plow into you as hard as he can. He's a very physical runner.
For sure. No, I just wanted your thought real quick on Bauman. How many more games do you think you need to see before you're like, okay, I'm ready to pull the plug on Bauman if like he doesn't progress?
Well, unfortunately, we'll certainly talk about this a little bit more, but I think Norfolk, his next game, actually has a decent passing defense. So obviously you're thinking, all right, Norfolk State, a team maybe kind of like Wagner, we should be able to pass the ball over, but I don't know if that's going to be the case. So I think it might look worse than it does. So I'm not ready to make a decision on that game solely unless he like plays really poorly. But gosh, like if he's got to take a step forward next week, and if he does that, then I don't know. He's got to take a step forward next week, I guess. If he takes a big step back, it's going to be kind of hard to keep rolling with him, don't you think?
It's interesting because that would be contradictory to what Choate Company wanted to go with. So they said, he's not going to have a short leash. And so can you imagine game 5-ish, maybe after Northern Arizona, Bauman's still struggling, and then he gets pulled and Rovig comes in. You got to wonder what kind of message that is sending. You got to do what you got to do, but we're supposed to be a playoff caliber team on a playoff track. And so it's really interesting. They got to get that dialed in. It sounds like Choate still has a lot of confidence in Casey, which gives me a little bit of peace in my heart, because I have a lot of confidence in Casey still. I think the game needs to kind of, like they always say, slow down for him. I think he just needs to play some ball. I think he might be playing a little too much in his head, and just like go out there and just do your job and not worry about it so much. And I think when he gets into that kind of groove, he'll find some confidence. So
he's doing everything that Choate is asking him to do right now, except for making those throws he should be making. But he's not turning the ball over. He's playing smart. He's not taking sacks. We've been sacked twice this year? Once. That's an incredible stat through 3 games against anybody. You could play 3 Division II teams and get sacked more than once. So that's that's a decent stat. He's getting rid of the ball. He's scrambling. He's actually strong enough too. Like the pocket collapses, he'll go forward. He'll get hit 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage, but he'll fall forward for 4 total yards, which is a net of 2. But it won't be a sack. it'll be a 2-yard gain. So he's strong enough to like fall. He falls like 6 yards. So just how tall he is. He just falls forward and he's not going to get sacked.
There's tremendous upside. So it's going to come together for him. I really hope so. I'm confident in that. And so, he just needs to, keep making some steps. So he can't like make 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of deal. So, or 1 step forward, 2 steps back.
Yeah,
I
got you.
And that's kind of what it felt like. All right, Thorny. Let's talk about the defense.
Well, I think real quick here, this is the perfect opportunity to get to our first Golden Koozie question of the night. What would you say?
Yeah.
This is kind of exactly what we're talking about. So we got our first question from Tanner Gooch on Twitter. He said, how much confidence do you have in Bauman in a scenario where his scenario was, there's 3 minutes left in the game, you're down by 4. How much confidence do you have in Bauman to lead a game-winning drive, or do the Bobcats still need Troy Anderson to get the job done? I'll pass that to you to start.
Of course you would. And so here's my answer to that. I'm going with Bauman. I'm okay with Anderson to get the job done, but Bauman needs to have that moment underneath his belt. And so I'm going to go with the young guy right there. And if he can get it done, that's some invaluable experience that we have in confidence. So I'm going to go with Bauman. Do I have the confidence in him? If I had to put a percentage on it, I would say 60% yes, maybe 55%. But I want him to have that opportunity, and I think, I want to see him do it.
So specifically, this changes on the timeline, in my opinion. 3 minutes. I think it's enough time to kind of run the offense the Cats are running it and still get the ball to your running backs. So I think in that scenario, I think it's perfectly fine because we can kind of operate kind of a normal offense. If we're talking 2 minutes, minute 45, a minute 30, when you have to actually start making throws, the intermediate short passing game throws, that's where I'm not sure I have the confidence in him right now because he is missing those passes right now. And if it is nerves or if he's in his head, I can't imagine that's any better in the fourth quarter, knowing you need to drive down and score a touchdown. Maybe he's the kind of guy that just totally just changes into a gamer. There's guys like that can play lackluster all game, but when the game's on the line, they just turn it on. So we haven't seen him be tested like that yet. But right now, I would say I'm not sure I have the confidence in him to lead a less than 2 minute drive, but 3 minute drive in the scenario Tanner laid out here. I would because I think we can still roll with so much of our typical offense.
You're trusting Troy Anderson to run the 2 minute offense opposed to Casey Bauman?
I didn't really answer the second part of that question. I'm just responding to do I have confidence in him to do that? I'm not sure I do right now. But certainly, I guess I would more than Troy Anderson throwing the ball in that situation.
Yeah, right.
So if you're asking me to pick between Casey Bauman with a minute 45 left or Troy Anderson with a minute 45 left, yeah, I might go with Casey Bauman on that because we're going to actually have to make some passes.
Okay. Thanks, Tanner, for the question. So let's move on to the defense. Thorny, what were your thoughts on how our defense is performing? Maybe just not just on Western Illinois, but just overall.
So I think the run defense has been salty. I thought they've been great. There's been very few holes to run through. I thought they've been aggressive. They've pushed the pocket back. I'm pretty happy with the defensive line's play. I'm less happy with our zone defense, and I'm kind of in the middle about our secondary. They've played good at times. They've played not so good at times. So overall, I'm pretty happy. I honestly think that so far we look better than we did last year. Maybe the best that we've looked under Jeff Choate. We're giving up less points, and we're getting off the field on third downs because what was Western Illinois, again, was 5 of 16 on third down. So that's going to win you some football games unless you go 2 of 16 yourself. But the defense did their job.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the defense overall looks a little bit better from last year. It's still concerning these seams down the middle, and when we play our zone coverage, the big gaps opened up in the middle of the field are seemingly always plaguing us for some reason. So I don't know if that's just unique to our scheme or just unique to the Bobcats. I'm not certain. We seem to play a little better when we disguise our zone, kind of like play a zone on the back end with their safeties and some man on the outside. But overall, I've really been happy. I think our defensive line is as advertised. And I think there's a little bit of a silver lining, too, with Munchie being out with some of the guys like Eric Zambrano, Tyree Gibson, getting some time playing on the corner on these first couple games before we get into the meat of the conference.
I agree. And let's actually get into our second Golden Koozie user-submitted question. Paul Morrison pretty much asked the exact same question. What's going on with the D when we play zone? It seems like we're still letting guys run wide open when we switch to zone. The linebacker's not reading and reacting as quickly, or is this correctable? You kind of just answered a little bit of that. I do think it's correctable, and I actually do think a lot of it is just the linebackers just not quite being in the right spot at the right time. And I also think part of it is we're relying a lot on our front 5 guys to get to the quarterback. And then when we don't, because I feel like a lot of that was Western Illinois, we got like the pocket to collapse on the quarterback pretty well. But he hung in there, and their line actually picked up blitzes fairly well, and that's when he was hanging in the class pocket, and he found the wide open guy, and that's where they had some of their big plays. So I think a lot of it is our defensive line didn't flush the quarterback, didn't really rattle him, and didn't get to him. We only had, 2 sacks in the game?
Yeah, that was surprising to me. That was both in the first half, too. But yeah, Sampson stood tall in the pocket and delivered a good ball, especially over the middle. So he was pretty salty.
No, he's a tough kid for sure. He's a gamer. He's going to be a decent player. I think he's, a sophomore or junior? I can't remember, but I think he's going to be a good one for him.
Yeah, I'm done playing Western Illinois. let's move on from those
They are
guys.
tough, ugly games, aren't they?
Yeah.
Knock down, drag out. And that's what you kind of expect to play when you play a Missouri football team, for the Missouri Football Conference.
Any other thoughts on our defense, Thorny?
Well, I mean, the other thing I want to talk about too is, so our secondary has been spotty at times, but we're also missing Ty Okada and Greg Filer. It does not help when you have a first team all conference preseason cornerback out. Like, it just doesn't, because he's by far our best man coverage. Like, maybe with him in there, our zone problems would still be the same, because a lot of the guys that we've recruited, it's interesting. Like, a lot of the guys we recruited seem to be man to man, and then we play a lot of zone, and they don't seem to, like Choate was saying in his press conference, like, it's a harder thing to learn zone, because man to man's easy. Like, all right, I got this guy, you got that guy, boom, that's all you gotta do. So zone's a little harder to learn, and I think we just have some young guys, and we're missing our number one nickel and our number one corner and filers. That could be attributing to some of the blown coverages. That long touchdown pass of theirs was because, according to the radio, because Jockway Allen fell down, I believe, right?
Oh, I missed that.
I believe, yeah. I think Allen just straight up fell down on that long touchdown and left him wide open, and that was wasn't really a blown coverage, but so there could be less points on the board. I mean, that's just kind of a fluke. It happens, but overall, I think the secondary is coming along too, and I still think the linebacker play needs to improve. And again, how much of that is because Troy Anderson was limited? I don't know if he makes a big difference if he's in there. You imagine he has to, just from his speed alone. I remember one thing I kind of talking a little bit of Grizz here, Bobby Houck's press conference. I listened to a little bit of it. Him talking about Oregon, like, they're athletic enough that if they make a mistake, it doesn't matter because they're fast enough to make up for it. And I kind of feel like Troy Anderson is in that mold. Like, maybe he's not in the right spot, but he'll be fast enough to get to the right spot before anything too bad happens.
What was Troy Anderson's injury? Is it a twisted ankle?
I think that's what I read on the board, but I'd never heard anything official from anybody that just said he wasn't 100% and that he may have tweaked an ankle, I guess, yeah.
Okay.
So,
quickly recap my mind. What's Ty Okada's injury?
I actually have no idea.
Yeah. Okay. I was just wondering his timetable. I know Munchie might be back soonish. Not quite certain. Apparently he had a surgery, and when you have a surgery, they typically heal a little bit faster. And so looking forward to getting him back. But the time, like I said, the time spent with the Gibson boy back there and Zambrano, the true freshman, that's invaluable for them.
It is.
So, and for us, because we're going to need them all.
Exactly. Like, if we're winning games right now with these guys getting all this experience, it's only going to help us in November, because if there's one thing that Choate teams have consistently proven is they get better throughout the year.
Yeah. All right, let's quickly talk some special teams. We alluded to Tristan Bailey just being nails. So maybe let's skip over that, but man, we couldn't get out of our way on special teams. It was like either just really good or really bad. We just like what things that stuck out to me, Thorny, was just how often we just gave up such good field position on kickoffs. They were hitting the 40 pretty regularly. At one point, I think you contacted me and said, let's just kick it out of bounds. And I was like, yeah.
I did say that, yeah.
So that
35
was
sounds better than the 40, right?
Yeah, that was super frustrating. Watching Lane Sumner take it to the house and getting called back on a holding call was super frustrating. And so I was just super frustrated with their special teams by and large. I mean, with the, notwithstanding Tristan Bailey's just field goal kicks. So,
no, that's a good point. That's a good point too, to kind of bring the defense back into it. Like, yeah, the defense, you have to take that in consideration too, how well the defense played, considering the short field that Western Illinois had to work with all day because of poor special teams play. And I also feel like maybe I may be wrong on this, but I feel like Tristan Bailey wasn't kicking it very deep on his kickoffs. Like, they're taking the ball like the 5, 10, or 15-yard line sometimes.
Mm-hmm. That could have had something to do with the wind.
It was real windy. That's certainly a part of it. And again, we only got to watch the second half, which I think was kicked into the wind. I don't know. For a big chunk of it anyway. I don't know. But it was a weird special teams day. And Choate didn't seem to be very happy with the effort by the guys on the unit. So he said he had a long 2-day chat with those guys. So wouldn't want to be in that room right now.
Oh no. Oh no. Yeah. So yeah,
But,
I think those will get solved. I'm not too worried about that. So.
All right. Well, anything else you want to talk about? The road win is a road win, man. Like you said, I felt better about it after kind of reflecting on it. But man, it's good to get a road win, and that was kind of a monkey on Choate's back. So that's yet another, as I talked about last week, just the list of things that Choate hasn't quite been able to do well yet. Road win against a solid FCS opponent.
For sure. So now we have 2 solid FCS wins on our resume, which plays into that number 8 ranking we have.
It's true.
Northern Illinois was 12-0 coming in before this game in non-conference openers in Macomb, and so they are now 12-1 with that one loss being us. So it is a tough place to play. It's like I said, the more I think about this win, the more I'm comfortable with it, even with the frustrations I had. So
yeah, they were 34-2 in their out of conference home games in the last decade or something. Pretty crazy. Like I didn't know any of that before we played them, so it's kind of impressive to hear that coming out of it.
For sure.
Well, our next opponent's not so storied of a program. Let's talk a little bit about Norfolk State.
Well, they're from the Mid-Eastern Atlantic Conference, or commonly known as the MEAC. They're 1-2 right now. Their first was a 21-24 loss of Old Dominion. Apparently, that's their rival, and Jeff Choate kind of talked about that game today. They went home the next week and won against a Division II team, Virginia State, 44-21, and just recently they lost 46-7 to Coastal Carolina. They have a couple big time players. The one that jumps out to me is Nigel Chavis. I probably said that wrong. Nigel Chavis. Yep, there it is. Number 9, their linebacker, senior, 230 pounds, 6'2". He's all over the field. He had 18 solo tackles already this season. And then they have Juwan Carter, their number 8, their quarterback, who's a junior, 6 foot, 175. He's all right, but I know they run the offense through him. He's passing around 200 yards a game, which is, nothing huge, but it's something. So, what are your thoughts on them?
It's funny to hear Choate call Carter kind of a mini Chris Murray, which is kind of funny because you kind of forget how actually big Chris Murray was. He was like 6'2", wasn't he?
Yeah, tall, lanky guy.
He's taller than I remembered. But anyway, yeah, so that's an interesting comment. I did watch a few highlights and a little bit of an ESPN replay of the game. They're not a bad-looking team for sure, but let's not. I've seen some inflating of them on the board, in my opinion. I mean, this is a team. Let's see, they were picked 7th, I think, out of 9th in the preseason conference. They finished 4-7 for like 5 straight years. They have some talent, and don't get me wrong, this isn't going to be a gimme, but East Coast team from the MEAC traveling all the way to Bozeman, that just typically doesn't end well for teams traveling that far, because we just found out traveling all the way to Macomb. Like, it's easier to get to Bozeman, but those teams that make that long, all the way across the country trek, that's a hard thing to do. So I think that they do have some talent, and I think Juwan Carter is going to present some problems. What else did you see from Norfolk, perhaps, that you think could give the Bobcats some trouble?
Not much.
Yeah.
If that's my short answer. ESPN has a couple of their highlights in this, probably like 2 or 3 plays, if I'm honest. And so that's literally all I've seen. And I was like, okay, what can I take away from this just watching this? And not much. They don't seem that physically imposing. Choate was much more complimentary than I am. I don't know. I don't think there's too much to be worried about with these guys. It's not even like, how I'm going to bring up Shadron State. You would have thought, I don't think there's going to be a thing like Shadron State. They don't have a player like Danny Woodhead or some sort of diamond in the rough that's going to just light us up either.
And everyone knew about Danny Woodhead too. It's not like Danny Woodhead came out of nowhere. He was like breaking records before we even played them. So anyway, continue.
Yeah, no, I just think this is really analogous to last year's Wagner's team that we played. So I'm expecting the Bobcats to establish the run, and then build some confidence with Bauman and some of the passing plays. But I think how the Bobcats win is first through the run on the ground game, and then through a more dialed in air attack too.
I'm going to do my best Jeff Choate here. I'm going to build him up a little bit. So on defense, 8 of their 9 top tacklers return. Their passing defense last year was pretty much a top 10 passing defense, and so far they're doing pretty good in pass efficiency defense this year, considering they played 2 FBS teams. They are 37th in passing efficiency defense and 28th in passing yards allowed, so they do have a pretty good passing defense. They know that they struggle with the run. They did switch to a 4-3 this year. They used to be running a 3-4 to try and actually alleviate the issues they've had on run defense, where they haven't succeeded so far. The rushing defense is currently 102nd in the country, giving up 247 yards a game. I want to say that Coastal Carolina may have rushed for about 400 yards on them last week. So, and the Coastal Carolina's a good team. They beat Kansas, and Kansas just went up and beat Boston College. So it's crazy world we're living in right now. But so they do have some good things going defensively. Offensively, I think is where it's kind of hard to find some real bright spots. Juwan Cotter did run or pass for 2,300 yards last year and rush for 338 more. But I mean, those aren't like off the chart numbers. Those aren't numbers that I was like, oh man, we got to worry about this guy. Those are decent numbers. Their leading rusher returns and Aaron Savage, but again, he had 400 rushing yards last year, so not exactly lighting it up. I've noticed that Carter, Aaron Savage, and a third guy's name I can't remember, all have 25 carries exactly so far this year, so they're pretty balanced, but they're only rushing for like 3.06 yards a carry between Aaron Savage, Gerald Hullett, and Juwan Carter. So they're not exactly lighting it on fire in any category offensively. Their rush defense is not doing very well, so that caters to our strength. Honestly, I just think that this game gets away from them quickly. Maybe we play sloppy like we have been in the first half, but I expect us to win this one by 2 or 3 touchdowns.
What do you want to see the Bobcats do?
I do want to see some improvement from Casey Bauman. I mean, aside from the number one thing of winning the game, I don't want to see us scrap and win ugly and sloppy at home against an outmatched opponent. I want us to look like we belong in the top 10, and that's going to be all phases of the team. That's going to be the offense. That's got to be the quarterback for what we need it to be. It's got to be the linebackers. It's got to be the defensive line, the secondary lockdown. I mean, it's got to be a dominating performance, and I feel like it should be.
Yeah. Wagner last year was one of our best performances all around, just offensive and defensive. And that's what I'm hoping for the Bobcats this week as well. So it's kind of that repeat fun win where it's never really in question. All phases are just lighting it up going into conference play and just with some strong momentum right there.
The one thing that I think Norfolk could have some success with is some of that zone. If we continue to play the zone like we did, they don't put up big numbers, but they are 30th in the country in passing efficiency offense as well. So they don't throw all over the place, but when they do, it's efficient. So I don't want us to see us get into forcing them into 3rd and 6s, and then they just pick apart our zone for 10 and 15 yards and just keep moving the sticks. We really need to get to the quarterback, and I think we'll do a little bit better with a guy like that who's going to be more likely to escape the pocket and not stick in the pocket like Sampson was for Western Illinois, because I think we have the kind of the athletes along the line and linebackers to flush him and get to him, or at least make him make a rush throw or a bad throw, or instead of a guy just sitting there with the world on fire around him and just firing darts like Sampson was.
Mm-hmm.
I think the matchups just are favorable to us. I think a team from a not traditionally strong conference that's picked 7th, who continually finishes 4-7, traveling all the way to Bozeman for our first home game after that kind of tough road game. I just think they're going to get steamrolled. I don't want to be too confident on this, but I think that this is pretty much going to be a decent margin of victory for the Cats.
Yep, me too. It's the Stripe It game in Bobcat Stadium. I've never really got behind that one, but it's kind of cool when you see it. So
I've never been to it. I think it'd be fun to go to.
Do they provide the shirts for the fans, or do they just tell them what color to wear?
Good question. I actually have no idea.
All right. Okay, are you ready to move on from Norfolk?
Yep, I think that really about covers it. I had anticipated talking more about him, but I think that pretty much sums it up as much as I can imagine.
The only other thing that comes to mind was when I interviewed Jacque on the Big Sky Media Days. He has some friends coming over on this game, and so that's going to be a special game for him.
All right, well, let's move on to what do you want to do? Revisit our bold predictions from last week?
Okay, yeah. So let's do that. I have them right here. I think I have them right here. You said Casey Bauman would throw for 200 yards.
Yeah, wrong.
Wrong.
It was kind of funny because when I said that, I didn't feel like I was being that bold. I was like, it kind of is for who we are, but it's kind of not. Like 200 yards isn't that much, but yeah, we didn't even get there.
You weren't the only person who was wrong.
What'd you have?
I said we would have greater than 5 sacks. That's when you said I was going to be Surge bold instead of Mountain Dew bold.
Yep.
We only had 2 sacks, and it was really frustrating because the second half we were so close all the time. I wrote down in my notes, it's like we're half a second away from getting to this guy, but Samson just keeps firing off these long passes. Man, we were close. So maybe if Troy Anderson was in there when we were blitzing, we would have got to him. But we only got 2 sacks, Jacque Allen and Bryce Sturck. So we were both wrong.
Yeah, fun. It's always fun when we're both wrong.
Yep. All right, let's talk about our bold predictions for this week, and then we'll get into buy or sell, and then we'll end it with the Golden Koozie questions.
All right, my bold prediction is... why don't you go first? I got to think of something.
I know. I just scribbled mine down. That was the one thing I hadn't figured out. I'm going to go with 3 sacks. 3 sacks or greater.
Do you think that's a bold prediction? Think that's bold?
It's like mediocre.
It's like mellow yellow if we're going the citrus drinks.
All right. Maybe I might revise that. So I'm still going to stick with it because I said 5 sacks last week and I thought we were going to get that, but dial it back, 3 sacks.
I got one while you keep thinking there. I think we're going to rush for 300 yards as a team.
Ooh. Okay. I'm going to still stick with my sacks. All right. I'll officially, okay, I'll split the baby. We'll go up to 4. All right. 4 sacks. 4 sacks or greater.
What does split the baby mean?
It's whatever you want it to mean.
It sounds terrifying. That's what I think.
Well, I had 5 in last week, and then I had 3 this week. So splitting the baby. We're putting it at 4.
Is that an expression, or are you just making stuff up right now?
I don't know.
Okay, let's just move on from that one.
Yeah. Let's go into the buy or sell. All right, Thorny, you ready for the hot seat?
Yep, hit me.
Okay, buddy. The Western Illinois, or buy or sell, Thorny, Western Illinois win was a quote unquote good win.
I would say, yeah, I'd buy it. It's a good win.
Okay. Any thoughts on that, or just that?
No, we're coming up against the time here, so I'm just going to keep it brief.
Sounds good. Okay. Buy or sell. Defense has been living up to the preseason hype.
Sell. Not quite as dominant as I was hoping. I mean, it's close. It's real close, but as I would have to say, not quite.
Okay. And number 3, last one. Buy or sell, Thorny. I wear at least one piece of MSU gear to work on a weekly basis.
Sell it. I hardly ever do because I don't really have anything work appropriate.
What do you wear to work, real quick?
I don't know, like a polo and jeans, really. So really nothing too fancy. If I had like a Bobcat polo, I could rock it, but
okay.
I don't wear t-shirts.
All right, Thorny, you're off the hot seat. Fully, buy or sell. The Western Illinois was a quote unquote good win. If you would have asked me Saturday or Sunday, I would have said sell, but I'm going to buy that right now. I think win over the Missouri Valley Conference is always good. I think just the logistical and weird dynamic that weekend Macomb set up, I think we did okay. Was it a great win? Definitely not, but I will classify it as a good win. Number 2, defense has been living up to the preseason hype. I'm going to sell that. I thought we would be more dominant in just like shutdown defense. We haven't been quite the shutdown defense I thought. And I think that mainly comes from the Munchie being gone and Taokata being gone. And so when those guys get back, or if they do get back, I think, granted, we don't have any other type of injuries to key players. And if Troy can heal up his ankle, I think we can be that shutdown defense. But as of right now, we are not quite getting to that preseason hype. We're close, but we're not quite there.
Interjection, buy or sell. Munchie is the best nickname on the Bobcat team.
Well, I'm trying to think of the other ones. No, I'm going to sell. I'm going to say Choate's term for Choate's his pet name for Troy Anderson, Secretariat.
That's a good one.
Oh man, it makes me just a little bit uncomfortable every time he goes, "Yeah, we put Secretariat out to the pasture." I'm like, is that really what you call him in your head? Come on, Choate. Anyways, but Munchie's good, but Secretariat's just that little bit more creepy good, and so I'm going to go with Secretariat.
When I said it, I was all ready to buy it, but then I remembered Jamad Monroe's nickname is Peanut, and that's pretty good too. So Munchie or Peanut? Oh, Peanut. I like Peanut. That's pretty funny.
Okay.
I don't know the story on it. Anyway, continue with yours.
Last one for myself. Buy or sell, Foley. I wear at least one piece of MSU gear to work on a weekly basis. I'm going to have to buy that. We have a college celebration day on Thursday, and so I always wear some piece of cat gear on Thursday to school. So there we go.
Nice. Nicely done.
All right. Last but not least, let's get into these Golden Koozie questions. And I'll take the first one. How about you take the second one? And
sounds good.
We'll alternate here. Okay, so this one comes from Helena Cat 95 on Bobcat Nation. When is it okay to leave for halftime tailgating? When is okay to leave for halftime tailgating? What do you think, Thorny?
I think it's fine if you get back in your seat before the kickoff. If you're going to leave and you're not going to make it, then don't go. Like, you probably should stick around and see the marching band, all that. I'm not going to lie. I usually left when I was in college, went pounded a beer and got back in my seat. I never missed a kickoff. So there is no wrong answer. The right answer is be back in your seat before the second half kicks off.
I totally agree.
Do what you want at halftime.
There's so many interesting drives that happen right on that onset of the second half. And so if you're not there, you're going to miss sometimes a game-changing momentum kind of play or drive. And so you got to be there. You got to see that. And plus, you got to be there for noise because a lot of people miss that first drive, So you got to get back in those seats, guys.
I'll tell you a little story. I was so used to leaving at halftime and just being able to, it's all just real close at Montana State. So I just walk outside, back to your little spot, drink a beer, get back in the game. When I went to the Colorado game in 2006, I left at halftime to go get a beer, realized it's not quite so easy. I ended up trekking quite a ways to the spot I had been drinking before the game started. There was nobody else there. Me and my buddy went. There's two other Colorado fans who weren't very friendly. I'll just leave it at that. But we did drink our beer, and we're walking back, and we hear cheering and stuff. We get in there. I missed one of the first plays of the second half was Corey Carpenter bombed it down the sideline to Michael Jefferson, and I totally missed it because I trekked way too far to get a beer. So get back by halftime or you miss cool stuff.
Yeah, I agree, man.
All right. So the next question is from Chris Hammond, who is one of the hosts of the Tubs at the Club Idaho Vandal podcast. He asked, is there a potential trap game on the rest of the Bobcat schedule that we see? What do you think about that?
Yep. November 9th, right before UC Davis, we played at Northern Colorado. I don't think we'll lose, but talk about looking ahead. Northern Colorado is sure bad right now. Playing in Greeley is always weird, and it's bring your own energy game. If there is a trap game on our schedule, it is November 9th. That's what I'm saying.
I would say Cal Poly on the road after NAU, assuming We beat Norfolk, assuming we beat NAU at home. All of a sudden, we're like, what, 5-1 at that point, or is it 4-1? 4-1 at that point, and then we travel to San Luis Obispo. Never fun, never easy to do. We always struggle with the option. If there is a trap game, I think at Cal Poly is pretty brutal.
Oh, that's a pretty good one there, Tony. I hadn't thought about that one, but I can see. Yeah, I like that.
I know we always play like crap in California anywhere under Kramer. I know we're a little bit better now, but I'm still still wary of it.
Okay.
All right, and our last question is, what's the difference in power in our Big Sky podcast power rankings that we've been doing if the Bobcats don't have Munchie, Afonso, or Trey Anderson or having them all three be out at the same time? That's Shane Driscoll. I worded that really badly, but let's just say Filer, Afonso, and Trey Anderson are all out of the lineup. How does that change your power ranking, how you view the Bobcats?
I think it has a big difference. Assuming Anderson, Filer, and Afonso are there last week, I probably have. I mean, our win is probably more convincing, and so if we're more convincing, then I'm putting them higher up on the list because I choose a Bobcat power ranking, or excuse me, Big Sky power ranking is how we're looking that week, and so I think that directly has a result.
Absolutely, I had us at 4th in my last ranking. We instantly dropped below the Grizz, we dropped below NAU, and we probably, at this point, we dropped below Sac State, in my opinion. So we dropped like to 7th if we have all three of those guys out at the same time. My personal opinion. We're still a good team, don't get me wrong, but yeah, we're definitely not top 5 anymore.
Well, those were our Golden Koozie questions. Thank you for sending those in. And if we send you a Golden Koozie, and today we are going to send Tanner Gooch. We choose you.
Nice.
we read your question early on about Bauman on if he would be the guy to lead a game-winning drive. Tanner, I'm going to get that out to you tomorrow. When you get those, if you would, it'd be really cool if you guys would take a picture with them and then use a hashtag Golden Koozie in your social media to tag those and kind of get that movement going. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, congratulations. That was definitely the one that just made us like, oh, we hadn't actually thought about the scenario, which is going to happen most likely. It was probably the most thought-provoking one, and that's why we liked it. Good job.
Right on, Tanner. All right, so let's get some call to action and let's get out of here.
All right, so as usual, you can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, all of the pretty much every single podcast service on the planet. We are there. Subscribe, leave us a review. That'd be awesome. One other thing I want to mention is if you guys want some more good Big Sky Conference content, make sure you follow the Big Sky Podcasts Network at Big Sky Podcasts on Twitter. They do a lot of fun stuff. There's the power ranking that we vote on, and Brian Marceau over also part of the Tubs of the Club does a great write-up for every single team ranked in there, and it's a pretty good read. They do real good work there. There's a podcast that's produced by they have different panelists every week. If you haven't listened to it, it kind of comes out on the Montana Mint, their podcast feed. It also comes out on Tubs of the Club's feed, where it's kind of like what's called Big Sky Big Takes. It's kind of like a Around the Horn style, but for the Big Sky. Ryan and I haven't been able to be a panelist on it yet, just from scheduling issues, but we will be there eventually. It's a pretty fun listen. Check it out. And I think on Fridays, they also do betting lines, which are pretty fun for all you degenerate gamblers listening to the show. I would check that out on Fridays as well. Montana Parlay does a real good job of kind of putting that together. So check them out. Find us also. And just thanks again. It's been a real fun season so far, and we just appreciate you guys listening in.
Yeah, keep those Golden Koozie questions coming.
All right, well, let's end this with a Go Cats.
Go Cats.